Yes. All right, there we go. Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Time for me to rally. I'm super sick. I haven't been this sick on a show in 5 years, so this is going to be exciting. If I mute myself or something like that to have a coughing fit and almost die, don't worry, I'll be fine. But also joining me is somebody who's not sick. It's Tom. All right, there we
What's
go.
up, Tom?
Hello, everybody.
Hello,
If it's
friends.
Wednesday,
How's it
it's
going?
Warhammer, and that must mean it's time
Vince
for
Vince
another
caught the
episode of Warhammer Weekly.
convention crud.
Time for me to rally. I'm
coming
super sick.
coming hot off
I
at
haven't
Nova.
been this sick on a show
So poor
in 5
guy.
years. So this
Sorry,
is going to be
Vince.
exciting.
No,
it's fine. If I mute myself or something like that to have a coughing fit and almost die,
and
don't
it
worry,
begins.
I'll be fine.
Yeah, that's
but
exactly
also
right.
joining me is somebody who's
No,
not sick.
I don't think we're live.
We are. We're live.
Okay.
We are live. I'm watching our show right now. It was playing in my preview window for my streaming, and I had to turn it off because I could hear it in my headphones. There we go. We're fine now. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. I didn't realize that could happen. Also joining us is the man, the myth, the legend, the TO of Nashcon, one of my favorite people, Mr. David Griffin. How you doing, buddy?
Hello. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I too have an orange drink, David, but mine is this vitamin water Rise orange that's full of electrolytes. It tastes like orange drink from McDonald's. It's really good.
Oh, weird. Mine's the exact same thing, except for not. It's a beautiful bourbon from Nashville, Tennessee.
Nice.
Nice.
I thought maybe you had a screwdriver. It looks kind of orange in the light.
No.
No, all right, just bourbon, just good old-fashioned bourbon. All right.
Good old-fashioned bourbon.
All right. So tonight we're going to talk about running a great tournament because I think, David, with Nashcon, I mean, there's a reason I drive like 8 hours to get down to Nashville every year and always will, right? There's a lot of great tournaments I really love and I love going to. I go to a lot of tournaments a year, but yours is one I really, really enjoy, and it has to do with a lot of the choices you make in running your tournament. And I thought I wanted to kind of spend some time and unpack those tonight. Talk to maybe people who potentially are going to run a tournament, talk about helping people who want to start up events, things like that, on how they might think of doing alternative stuff. You know, we've had Steve Herner on before. He's in the chat right now. Talked about the way he does his. He's another one who makes very unique tournaments, who has a very unique setup. And in the end, that's what I really love. I love it when a TO like yourself makes it an interesting, unique, and fun experience, right? And that's what I think you do every year.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear it. I mean, that's definitely why, I do it. It's why all the TOs do it, right? We like having, like seeing our friends and fellow gamers in one place, all playing the game that we love, right? And so what would depend, regardless of what kind of tournament you run, that's kind of the end result. So I'm glad to hear that you enjoy it so much, and always glad to see you come too. I wish I could say the same for Tom.
Oh, I knew it was coming. I was just waiting for it. Yeah, I'm sorry. Like my Fire Slayer army that's mostly painted is right there, and it makes me really sad. I wish I could have been there.
It's all right.
But hey, next year. I know I said that last year. I acknowledge that, but at the same time, I think there's pretty good odds for next year. Let me say it that way.
Hey, well, next year you'll be like a doctor or something, right? So your word will have more gravity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how it works.
Has it.
Well, we'll see if everything works out for him. He's either going to be a doctor or the saddest owner of a master's degree in his school.
At this point, if I don't make the PhD, I get given a consolation prize of a THM. So it's so I'll be the saddest owner of 2 master's degrees.
All right, so let's get into some news. Tommy, what do we got this week? We've got some stuff. First of all, the rumor engine, you can't see it, but it's already on the screen. That's right. Boom, I pre-rumor engine imaged. What do you think about that? And it's the little end of a spear with 2 little tassels on it, or the end of something, 2 little tassels on it.
I think it's something hanging off of a saddle.
Okay. In other words, you think that, like, that pole is sticking out of, like, somebody, like, is tied up to somebody's saddle? Mm-hmm. That's hanging off the end?
I think so. I don't know. What do you think, David?
Yeah. I mean, I could go with that. I actually just pulled up the YouTube on another tab as well, so now I can see the rumor engine as well.
There you go.
Yeah, I was really hoping this would be something Elven. I don't think that's what it is. I can, yeah, I don't really feel strongly about this one. I feel like it could be, yeah, sure. Well, I'll go with tassels on some kind of cavalry piece or something.
Sure. All right. Uh, I'm gonna say it just. You know what it looks like to me? You remember the big giant spear? What was he? A slaughter priest or something? I don't remember. Like whatever. It
Yeah.
was one of the dudes from Gore Chosen who was like holding up that giant spear.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it reminds me of the back end of that. With a
Sure.
but the little tassels look a little, I don't know, not chaosy, I guess.
No, they actually, to me, they look like the one dude, the one army, the ninja Warcry army.
Cypher Lords?
Yeah, the Cypher Lords.
That's cool. Yeah, I don't know.
Having put together one of those war bands, it's kind of what it looks like to me.
That's fine. I mean, I'll tell you my thought. It's a 40K special character.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's probably true.
I was trying to make some kind of connection between that and like a new ogre character, but it's too refined
That's
for
not
ogres.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. All right. Sorry, everybody. I will try to cough on mute most of the time, assuming I'm not talking. All right. What else we got, Tom? What else is in the news?
It's a great question. We have a pre-order coming up this weekend for the new Monsters and Mercenaries from Warcry. That's right, an expansion already here. Man, let me tell you, super disappointed it wasn't the Cities and Orcs book. Like, we just found out about this last weekend. Like, I like getting it the next weekend, but
Sure.
Why haven't we gotten the other thing that we had already found out about?
Do you think it's delayed somewhere again?
I don't say that.
I'm just saying it's a possibility. I haven't seen
Maybe.
anything set to that event. I'm just saying. Now that happened once. It feels like a thing that could happen again. I hope not.
Maybe. That's the answer. Maybe. I mean, yeah. I don't want to think about it, but possibly. The other one would be
Real
other
quick on that
release.
Monsters and Mercenaries. Did you read the article on it where they showed it? It was really good. Like, there's a lot of stuff. Oh my god, when they said you're allowed like mercenaries, like the characters and stuff you're gonna be able to bring in, it's something like 50 characters or something for every alliance. Not 50 individually, like 50 total. Like Bray shamans and dudes from Gabapalooza and the dude swinging the anvil around from Korn and just a ton of characters. Spellcasters and stuff like that, and then the monsters, they went through the big list, and it was kind of everything you'd expect from all the different big Griblies. So like Gorgon and Cygor were on the list, which I was very excited about because, that means those might have a use. That's exciting.
Gives you a reason to play with those models.
Yeah. I think it'll be funny when they come out with like 100 wounds. It's just gonna be like beating on this thing relentlessly.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm kind of mixed on it. Yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, we'll see. Like, it seems like a lot of content in short turnaround, and so like, man, I hope it's balanced.
Well, it was very interesting so in the article they explained a little about how you get the stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you can never hire any of it to start with. Okay, obviously.
Right.
Which is interesting because that is different than Kill Team, right? If you think about when they came out with the Commanders expansion, you suddenly went from like 100 points to buy everything to 200, right?
Yep.
And in this case, they're like, no, you don't get this stuff at first. You've got to earn it by running through the campaign. And there's special missions to get these things. And like, for example, to get the monster, you have to defeat the monster, right, in a campaign game, and then even then he's not completely controlled, right? So like, even if you have him in your warband, yeah, it's still a wild beast, and these guys don't have the wherewithal to really like keep the thing from rampaging on their own lines. So I think stuff like that's a great mechanic. I love stuff like that. Yeah, I want to see the Gorgon turn and eat a couple dudes in the army that brought him. That feels really appropriate.
Totally. I just want to see how much of a beast the mega boss is.
Oh yeah.
He's gonna be amazing.
Just the one on foot, you mean, right?
Yeah. Just judging from how crazy the normal Iron Jaws brutes are, I want to see what the Mega Boss can do.
I mean, that dude's a beast in the normal game. That guy is
Yeah.
an MVP for me nearly every game. So, yeah, I can't wait to get him on the table with my Iron Jaws and Warcry. Go ahead, Tom.
I just had a source reach out to us and clarify that the books are not stuck in China.
Oh, good. Well, there you go. Good to know.
So that is not the problem.
Okay, excellent.
Is what I've just been told.
Well, that's wonderful. Then I'll assume that's the case, and they probably just have a release strategy that's like probably mid-September, and then the Bone Daddies will be
Late October.
Yeah, mid to late October.
Because you have the beast grave probably coming early October, right. And then you'll have late October.
Well, and the sisters comes out on the 2nd, right? The big box, which I am very, very excited for, to say the least.
I'm not.
I'm sure you aren't, but this was exactly so. This is exactly the way I wanted to buy this. I don't know if I told this story on our cat recap show or not, so I'll just tell it real quick.
Yeah.
I was really afraid this whole army was going to come out at once. I was going to have to buy the whole thing, and then all the models would hang over me like a sword of Damocles, right? Just like, because I always I feel the weight of it. I hate seeing boxes unpainted. I have a very small backlog.
It's so true. Like, it's so funny, like the difference between being in my space and being in Vince's space. A completely different world. I'm like, where are all your models?
Painted.
On shelves.
And on the shelf. And so I was just like, and I'm not going to want to sit there and plow through them all. Like, I want to take my time. I want it to be like a project, something fun where I get to express myself a little bit. And then they said, oh, well, actually, this first box set we're releasing will have the book and 25 models. And I was like, yep, perfect. Thank you. I can just buy that. And I'm like, good to go. So I was thrilled. Anywho, yeah, my guess is we'll see them big bad Bone Daddies, in mid-October. By the way, David, what do you think of the Bone Daddies, huh?
They're interesting. My first take on them was really excited. I especially for the cavalry. I've run Death for a long time, and I've run Blood Knights longer than anyone has any right to run Blood Knights. Yeah. And so I saw the cav and thought, yeah, this is gonna be it. I kind of cooled on the faction since then. Kind of looking at some of the other at the rest of the range. I want to see what else they have, because I know there's more models coming. So I want to see what else is launched. But I'm in a weird spot where I have my Ideneth army that I need to keep building out. I think there's elves coming at some point, like the light elves. And I really don't want to commit to this and then them launch light elves like sometime next year. And, I've already blown my budget on this army. So we'll see. I love the new Mortark. He's just a baller model. And I love the cavalry. And I'm not as hot on the rest of the range right now.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually. And the one thing that I would add is that, like, I think that the interesting thing is not going to be the range as it is currently exists. I think what's going to be interesting is the conversion opportunities that come out of it. Because like looking at it, I was like, nah, this is not really interesting. And then I thought like, well, what if these guys had like metal bones? Like you painted them very Necron-esque. And I was like, ooh, there's maybe something there. And then I got to thinking about like, well, what does this army then look like if you actually did a bunch of conversions and made it look like TK? Like the big golem-y guys, you put like horses, like the bone horse heads or animal like heads on and made it look like the like Ushabti.
Sure.
And I was like, oh,
yeah.
like I was not interested. Now I might be interested.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I saw a picture of like the infantry with just standard skull heads.
Yeah.
I think that immediately was a better look for me personally. I didn't like the weird grins they have on their face. That just it kind of weirds me out. And right. I think actually like a couple of years ago, I was taught back when Tomb Kings were getting retired. I thought it'd be interesting if they could kind of bring back and create a whole reanimated army, an army based on the reanimated keywords, this is exactly that. I would love if they could somehow figure out a way to work the Necrosphinx back into to the range and as something. I think it'd be amazing. Sure. But 'cause it's still a super cool kit. Not bring back all the Tomb Kings, but I like that the Morghast are going to be included as well. Yeah. Those are gorgeous models.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I've seen a couple people share some alternative heads from Puppet War.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, they make samurai skull heads, which I think look really awesome on those guys.
Yeah.
You know, it's only the base infantry I think I don't love, and it's only really two things about them. There's two little minor things that I really love the army. The cavalry are A+, all the way.
Yeah.
They look amazing. The Mortarch himself, A+. The catapult, amazing. Okay, like that big ridiculous thing is so stupid and awesome. The base infantry, they're the goofy heads with like the knots on the top. You know what I'm talking about? The ones that have like bumps. Those are the ones that drive. I don't mind the regular skulls. When you look at them in the case, the picture of them, most of them have just regular skulls with a grin. Okay, so I don't hate that. I kind of don't love the shield. It's a little short and wide. I wish it was longer, a little more tower shieldy. And then the armor, I love the like 4-headed Quintesson Grievous dudes. Okay.
No.
Not a fan.
Oh no, I love those guys. But let me just say, like, what don't you like about them?
They seem too organic to me. Like they seem really like bug like kind of. I guess it's because they look too. I have like the Tyranid kind of already in my head, and I look at them and just kind of make the connection there. I'm sure if I came in cold without any concept of what a Tyranid looked like, I mean I had the same problems. I don't know. There's something about the posing, like they just seem odd to me, but that might just be a modeling opportunity, like having the models in hand. It might go away with just a reposition of the arms. And so I think the models could be really cool, but I think if I'm going large base miniature, I go to Morghast before I go to them for aesthetic.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, here's what I'll say. I really liked him seeing him in person. They did have him in the case at Nova. The only thing I don't like about him is their chest armor on the non-champions. It looks really weird. It's hard to describe because it's like...
You're talking about the weird shoulder chest stuff?
The non-champs just have a chest plate. Okay?
Right.
And it's pointed at an angle, like, you can't see what I'm doing, but it's pointed away from their chest. Right? Like, it hangs like this. Like, out from their chin toward to the out of their ribs. The outer area of their ribs. And because of that, like, stacked format and the highlight down the center, it kind of looks like they have, like, I want to say this with the nicest, like, I don't know how else to say it. It's what it calls to my mind. They kind of look like they have saggy boob armor. I don't, you know.
Maybe they're the sumo guys that.
And, like, but I think if you replaced that with the Morghast armor, because they're about the same size. I think they would look sweet. Also,
like the shoulder plate,
the chest and shoulder pieces. Yes.
Okay.
Now let's just clarify this. The base infantry is on 25s. It's not any bigger. They are on 25s. The basic infantry is 25s. I sat there. I saw them. I looked straight at them. I know how big a 25 is. I know how big a 32 is. It's not 28. It's not 32. It's 25. They were right up against the case. I could put my finger up to it. It's 25. Okay? 25. I keep hearing everybody hoping beyond hope that maybe it's bigger. It's not. The ones in that case were on 25s. All right.
Well, I mean, this is what I'll say. If that's the case, then that actually, like, that gives me hope, because that means that a lot of the heads for, like, alternate stuff, like, you don't have to worry about them being too big.
Yeah.
Like, you may be able to do some nice, easy conversions with those heads. So
yeah,
that's exciting.
They are the same size. So, for example, here's your easiest swap. If you don't like those heads, you literally can just get a skull pack and switch every basic skull, and they are 1-to-1 sized. They are the size of the skulls in the skull pack. Right. The big guys are on 50s. Like the forearm dudes. They're on 50s. Okay.
I wish they had just had a bunch of heads, like GW heads, like the samurai looking guy on the Mortar space.
Yeah.
He looks awesome.
He's amazing. Absolutely,
Yeah.
I agree. Here's the thing. I'm really interested in the rest of the units because I feel like there's got to be an ogre-sized unit, probably. Let's call it on 40s, like a sort of mid-range between those two. And the reason I think that is because all of the tie-in with ogres, right?
Yeah.
Like all this, like the ogres paying the tithe of bones and stuff like that. And
Well, rumor has it that they have a battle line unit that is ogre size.
right. And so I think like if that's also an option, that will be really interesting, right?
I think we have an alternate build of the skeletons that are archers as well.
Oh, sure. Like they've said that there is, you know, stuff not released, and they've also kind of hinted at shooting. So
They seem really heavy armored for archers, and maybe like crossbows or something. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. Or big daiku, like is it daikus? Not daikus. What is the big bow? Like the 7-foot tall long bows.
I
You
don't know.
what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about, but I don't know. Could be though. Yeah, I hope the forearm guys fire 2 of them.
Oh my god.
That'd be sweet. Dudes with 2 bows. At any rate, yeah. So Doom in the comments asked how big the multi-arm guys are, like how tall. I don't know. They're pretty tall. I didn't have another model next to them, so I can't tell you exactly how tall they are. But I could tell you they were on 50s because again, like I had the character with the coffin on his back is on a 40. So like they had them sitting right next to each other, so it was actually really easy to reference the size. They were very near the front of the case. You know, you can just like my index finger from like here to here is about an inch, right? Like I can literally lay it down, and from this bend to here, and it was the exact size of the base, and that the other one was 2 of those across. It's like it's a pretty it is dice.
Yeah, I'm excited for the faction just in general. I think they're really
all those characters look amazing. Like every character they had looked amazing. The Mortark, the Soul Bender dude who had like the big scythe, and the guy with the coffin thing on his back. By the way, Tom, you know that image they released of the thing you talked about, what was the name of that thing?
I don't know what you're saying.
It was like a Egyptian stone thingy with carvings on it.
The cartouche or the
cartouche. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh no, the Stella.
Oh,
you're talking about the Stella, right?
I don't know. I don't know what these things are, so I'm trusting you. It was the round, almost tombstone looking thingy, right? But it was there.
Yeah, it was the guy from the video.
Yeah, it's the back of his coffin.
Right.
Yeah. Just so we're all sure. Yes, we lost David for a moment. I'm sure he'll be back. Don't worry. But yeah, like I'm excited to see the rest of this range. It's gonna be a pickup from me probably, especially if we can lean toward the more elite options or the basic infantry aren't necessary. That's what's really gonna bring me on board because everything like character and elite wise, I really like. So there you go. All right, that was a long diversion. Gotrek's coming out.
It was. Yes, he is. You stole my thunder, dude.
Gotcha.
That's my job.
Got him.
Got him. Yes, Gotrek's coming. I have him on pre-order. I'm excited.
Nice. Hopefully David will be back in a moment. We'll just let him reload.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. The other so Gotrek is coming. You'll probably want to get him on pre-order this weekend, ASAP. And then the other piece of news that dropped. Also, battle mages have disappeared from the store now. So, but it wasn't in the initial call.
I mean, I'm sure there may be some kind of rebox, right?
Yeah, there's probably some degree of rebox that's happening. Another possibility is like we were told that there's like a council in the cities of Sigmar, like in the article that came out, right? Like there's like a group of like commander, like I forget what the exact language was, but implying that like you would appoint heroes as these things. And I'm wondering if there's like a little tri-hero box that's coming out for that or something like that has like different, people to fill that role.
Sure. Could be.
So that'll be interesting. So that was another thing that happened. Other changes to the store. Looks like the season 1 of Underworld is going to no longer be available to order. So it'll be interesting to see. Like, we don't know what they're doing with the cards yet. There's talk of maybe having a box, like a full set, that could possibly happen. They're said that they're still playable in season 3. We more info's coming. But all that to say that like their cycle for Underworld's warbands may only be 2 years. And that may be more churn than I think people would want. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, it's a question of what exactly that means, right? Like they did say that all of the season 1 will remain legal for season 3, right? They did confirm that. The question is going to be, are they going to just rebox them in some way, still make them available only through special order? Like there could be a couple ways they attack it. So, or just like make the cards available, separately, like in a full pack, like you can go and buy all the season 1 cards or something like that, who knows? They've said that like an announcement is forthcoming. So, there you go.
It'll be interesting. So that's happening.
I mean, it's not surprising, right? Like in a sort of, in a highly competitive Magic like game, it wouldn't be super surprising to follow a rotation kind of like that.
Right.
So, there you go. I mean, that's kind of what they're competing with there, right? That's sort of
although like they don't have like overwhelming numbers of product either. It's not like Magic that has like 30 sets or whatever, like
sure, but they also carry a higher cost for per unit than Magic does.
I mean, does it though? I mean, it's a one and done buy on a warband as opposed to like Magic where you're buying like a case every 3 months.
Their cost for upkeep of the molds is higher than.
Oh, got it.
There's what I'm saying. Yeah, is a higher unit cost on their side.
Yep. That makes sense.
At any rate, all right. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. There you go. Any other news? I think that's everything.
Not that I know of. Yeah, we're anxiously awaiting the city stuff and the orc stuff. We don't have the news on that yet.
I agree. Autumn in the comments mentioned that there's some rumor that there's going to be the ability to make a hero on Demigryph. I've also heard there's going to be the ability to make a hero on Steam Tank, like a tank commander.
That'd be sweet.
I support both of these things wholly and enthusiastically. Please, for the love of all that is good in this universe, give me my hero on a Steam Tank. Please. I will be happy forever. Like, tank commanders are sweet. So, do it. The hero on Demigryph would be awesome as well. I mean, people have been asking for that since, 7th edition? So, seems good. Right on time. David, do you have any sort of Cities of Sigmar stuff? You excited about that book at all?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one other thing that could tempt me, depending on what the book comes out like and how it's segmented and who all is included and all of that. That might be something that I dabble into. I have a few ideas that as far as army builds go, or conversions go, that I think could be really fun. So I just want to kind of see the book first, though.
Cool. All
yeah,
right.
I'm not gonna lie.
Also, let me know.
Go ahead, buddy.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
If that book, David.
Amazing, go Tom.
If that book comes out, I may bust the KO out again. Like Tempest Eye may definitely happen.
Sure,
definitely.
It'll be your KO pre-release.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, that's exciting. What were you going to say, David? Go right ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I just switched bands on my internet, so if I come in choppy, just let me know.
No, you're fine. Okay. You're about the same as Tom's crappy internet all the time, so it's all good.
Oh, well, that's at a really low bar.
Come on, man.
Tom's actually clearer than you tonight. How about that? Whoa, boy.
Oh, Jesus.
Nah, you're fine, man. It's okay. Your audio is perfectly crystal clear, which is what I want. It's actually better now. You had a little background scratch before. Whatever you did now, the background scratch went away. It was very light, so it wasn't super annoying.
Okay.
But so keep whatever you're doing. It's fine. You just look like you're a little fuzzy, and that's okay.
Huh. Okay.
We can't handle your level of attractiveness in crystal clear.
I'm
1080.
breaking.
Yeah, you'll too much of our audience members will swoon. We can't handle
Fair
that.
enough. Yep.
All right. So with that news out of the way, gentlemen, shall we do some pick of the week? All right. Who's got some pick of the week stuff? Tom?
I do. Steve Herner, friend of the show, I believe he's in the comments, launched a YouTube channel this week.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome.
come check it out. We will link that below. So, and you can come hang out with us and watch Steve's videos.
That's awesome.
He has a little bit of hobby content on there now.
Yeah.
And he's been doing his hobby streak for many, many days. And yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Fantastic. All right. David, anything you want to share?
Yeah. So, kind of coming off Nashcon, I did, as a lot of people know, lots and lots of terrain. And I've gotten a lot of questions following Nashcon about how I did a lot of the painting and how some of the effects and stuff. I wanted to kind of rep the Terrain Tutor, his whole channel on YouTube. I know he's been on the show before, but definitely would recommend following him on YouTube for all of his. He's just got just gobs of different terrain effects and techniques. And I definitely just straight up lifted a lot of stuff that I do from him. So that's what I would like to point you to.
Nice. Awesome. I will put the link down there. For my pick of the week, I want to give a shout out to my good buddy and fellow member of the CK Studio team, Dev. Dev is running. He was over here for Nova. It was great to hang out with him. He's a super nice guy. He helped me out when I taught my 2 classes over in the UK earlier in the year. And he's teaching his first 2 classes this year. The details will be down below. He's doing one in Birmingham and one in London. The Birmingham is the end of September. The London is like the second week of October. The exact dates and details and what he's teaching is and cost and everything's all there. The models are all provided. Dev's a really great hobbyist and a really nice, super good teacher. If you're in that area and you wanted to take a class with somebody from our studio, I would highly recommend you go hit it up. Link is in the description down to go check that out. So please do. I want to see Dev have a nice full waiting bunch of students because he's going to be teaching stuff like battle damage and just a whole bunch of fun things. So it's going to be a really, really good class. So check it out. All right. So with that being said, how about some hobby time? David, buddy, what are you working on, man? What's on your table?
Yeah, you were speaking to me earlier when you were talking about having like the sword of Damocles hanging over you and not having too many models kind of staring at you.
Yeah.
That's what's happened to me over the past few months. Since I've been painting so much terrain, I've had just models piling up, and I've kind of taken it upon myself now to just steadily work through them. So I've got Warcry models, I've got some Ideneth, I've got some Stormcast, and I kind of chose the Warcry piece as kind of a test bed for contrast paints. So I'm really experimenting with a number of different contrast paints and trying to rapidly churn through those models. I'm not trying to compete with them from a painting standpoint. Really just want to play with them. And so I think this is a really good opportunity for me to practice speed painting. And then also trying to figure out shortcuts in my slow painting on my other army. So I kind of have the models in ranks on a table, and I'm just slowly burning through all of them while trying to manage an infant. So the beauty of paternity leave is that I get to try out new things with painting. So it's been fun.
There you go. Awesome. Yeah, I agree with you. Like stuff like game pieces like that, where they're not going to be like you're not using they're not getting painting judged. They're just there to facilitate more of a board game type experience. It's the great thing to work your speed muscle on, right? It's good to experiment that way. Yeah, 100%. Awesome, man. That's great. Yeah. Tom, what about yourself, buddy? What are you working on at this moment? Looking from the looks of it.
At this moment, so it's funny. Earlier this week, I had a heart-to-heart with Vince.
Yeah,
where I said, I don't think I'm gonna get my Nighthaunt painted for Havoc.
To clarify, that was literally a week ago, but go ahead.
That was a little week ago, and I just said I don't think I can do it. I'm probably just gonna have to take some models I already have painted. Like I will commit to coming, make sure I'm at Havoc, but I don't think I can get any stuff painted.
And my response was, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then I went, yeah, exactly. And then I went, I don't know. Maybe I can get something painted.
Sure.
And so so I started on my ghosts.
Yay, ghosts.
Nice.
And yeah, I didn't know how the neon would work, and I like it. I'm doing like, so this is like, I try to, like, every time I do an army, I try to play in different space that I've never played in before. And for me, that's not like new techniques, that's new colors. To be clear, like I started with like a green brown army, right?
Yeah.
And then I went to like an orange army.
Sure.
And I went to a purple army.
Yeah,
and a
you're
silver
very
army.
like, people get on me for like my use of colors, but you are like very monochromatic often in your army choices.
Yeah,
Like
like when I have
I just mean like you usually have one very dominant color.
yes, I have a dominant color with a bunch of neutrals and then a little bit of flash. Like that's my normal thing. And like I don't want my army to look like Skittles when it's on the table. And so this time around, my new thing is I'm experimenting. I'm going to be playing in purples still, and greens obviously, but I'm sitting in lots of neons, so neon greens and neon yellows for my ghost stuff. And I've really enjoyed it because it's all like very translucent, and so it's super easy to blend. And so like I've just been having a lot of fun with like white inks and neon greens and yellows. So
I still think you should use crimson as a pop color.
I know. Like I know. Like because part of this is like a dark elf army. Like because that's the thing with my Night Haunt is that I wanted it to feel like that's my like my +1 is that like all of my conversions are with like Night Haunt bits.
Sure.
Or not Night Haunt, with dark elf bits.
Sure.
I want to maintain like the classic like Druchii purple. Like even if it's just small spot colors here and there on the models. So I know I hate, the problem is the color that I need to use is realistically I need to use the I'm gonna ignore Kathy.
I love that she called them Bone Kings. That might be even better. Like I don't know, but Bone Daddies is catching on, so we got to go that way.
Bone Daddies clearly like the right answer is I need to use Screamer Pink as my color.
Sure.
Like
that would be way too gaudy.
But the problem is that like I hate that color.
It'd
like
be a
I hate it
enough highlight if you had it mostly red, wine, crimson, the rest.
Yeah, but then I don't like I never like the red and green Christmas combo.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna disagree with Vince. I like the purple and green better than red and green. Yeah. I that's what my death is green with purple as my accent, and I prefer that.
You're a little biased, buddy.
Yes, sweet.
Hey.
Thanks, David.
Yeah. Yep.
So and then but what in order to like balance the purple, I've tried to lean into the neon yellow with the yellow and purple because they are sitting across the spectrum from each other.
Yeah.
And so I've like my green has went a little bit more neon because of that. To try to pull it to try to counter the purple. So I don't know, we'll see. Like I said, I'm still trying to like I'm on basically the Banshees were my test set of models because like for those of you guys that haven't painted Night Haunt, they're actually a really interesting problem from a painting standpoint. Because of how how the magic in the ghost stuff flows, like the ghost essence flows, is different on different models. And so like sometimes it's like ghost on ghost coloration. And so your differentiation has to be with like concentrations of color, like the Banshees. And so like I wanted to start on them because they had a really interesting problem with how the glow effect was going to work, as opposed to like the chain rasps, which are very straightforward.
Sure.
And so like it's been interesting trying to like figure that out because like the models are non-intuitive when you go to paint them.
Yeah, sure. The Banshees are always kind of an interesting challenge. All that because it's not as clear what's
solid and what's not.
Yes, thank you. Exactly what I was going to say. Go ahead, David.
Well, and it's also can look really same, kind of the same problem that First Slayers have in a different way, but because all the army is kind of ghosty and flowy, kind of the same way that all the Fire Slayers are short and squat with mohawks, it's hard to differentiate and get visual hierarchy across the army to where it makes it look interesting.
Yeah, and like some of the models are just really problematic, like Reignor and the like all of your horse models, because it's not clear what is like ghost and what's solid. And sometimes you have like ghost on ghost, like the horse flesh is clearly not flesh, like it's smoky in places, but it's also fleshy, but it's up against the normal ghost smoke of the rider. And so like it's just like it presents like really unique color balance challenges on the composition itself. And so it's been really interesting to kind of wrestle with. And so I decided to do one of the challenges first to see how quickly they painted up. And they painted up actually very quickly.
Nice. So for my hobby time, I'm desperately trying to finish this girl. She's almost done now. There's the back of her cloak, and there's her head. And there's her other cloak and everything.
I can't see
you
what
can't
you're
see any of
talking
it,
about.
but the audience can.
Nope.
It's my 7th keeper of secrets, Tom, but the 6th for gaming.
I see.
And the problem is that it's really hard to finish right now. I've obviously been not at home at all for like 2 weeks. This I feel like I've been painting this model. I don't remember a time before this model anymore. Because I haven't been home like at all the last 2 weeks, and then I got home. Excuse me. And I got sick, and that happens. And when that happens, my whole body shudders, and it's very hard to do minute detail painting work when you suddenly cough out of nowhere and everything, and you just shake. So I have not made as much progress as I want. I am quite ready to be done with her, but I want to use her for a video tutorial, and I can't exactly record a tutorial where I'm talking when I'm like this. So, yeah. Also, for everybody who's in the PMP, I apologize that the end of month video for August isn't up yet. I had intended to already record it, but again, can't talk that long, because that's like I have to talk fast and for like 3 hours straight. I will die. So, but it's coming. Don't worry. Okay, so that's hobby time. Oh, also, while I was at the convention, I did put a little paint on this girl right here. Ooh, little sister. It's the sister that was under our chairs. I got paint on her. So, she'll be the next thing I finish, because she's fun. Anywho. So that's all of that. Hopefully I'll feel better, back up to speed, finish this thing. We're back on the stick. All right, here we go. I'm gonna have I'm introducing a new segment. Here we go. All of a sudden, new segment. Ready? Here's the new segment. It's called Warhammer Weekly gives a shout out to somebody else so that they handle something. Here we go. So James Valdez is in the comments. I'm gonna go through what he asked. The question that he asked me on Twitter was, can a person, an Iron Jaws player, roll the die for here we go to know how far it is? Okay, but then not move. And then use the teleport spell to move them. And then move them after the teleport spell is resolved. Okay? To which the answer is no. Under no universe could you do that, because there is no thing that allows you to interrupt one ability. Here we go's exact phrasing is, in your hero phase, if this battalion's big boss is on the battlefield, roll a die. Each unit from the same battalion can make a normal move of up to a number of inches equal to the roll. They cannot run or retreat. Meaning that you simply execute and do that thing. Whereas the spell would have to obviously be, there's no ability for the spell to interrupt that thing. It's not like a Gristlegore Reaper thing where it can just like immediately, instead of dying, fight twice and kill the thing instead, right? But for a deeper thing, I want to throw this over to Heywo. All right? I think Heywo, who's watching right now, I think you should unpack this. This feels like something you should unpack. Because there you go. Tom, any thoughts on it?
No. No. I mean, like, that's not how abilities work in this game. Like, things get stacked and then resolved along the stack. If elements or triggers are removed, then that influences whether other later things will fire off. But there's a stack, and you resolve through the sequencing. Like, you can't interrupt abilities. That's my thoughts.
That's exactly right. There's no interruption unless the thing actually says, unless the trigger for the activation is specifically would interrupt, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just no. And, it looked like somebody was responding to James saying like, well, clearly you don't know how to read rules and stuff like that when James gave this answer. I don't know what to say there, man. It's not like I would ask that person to source why they think they can do it and to concisely explain it. But
right.
There's absolutely no precedent or reason why that would act like that.
Right.
So there you go. And maybe Haywo can do a deeper thing on his thing because he's good at breaking down rules and walking people through, and he's got a good
likely with a little bit of snark.
Exactly. That's also why I've summoned him, because he has the right attitude for this sort of thing to handle this problem. All right. Anyway, so let's get on to the main topic, shall we, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Right.
All right. I'm gonna kick us off here with just kind of a laydown of what I see as the fundamentals of why Nashcon is a great tournament in these kind of aspects. Some of the things you do. And then we'll kind of go through and break it all down. First things first, your pack is tight. I think most good TOs have a good pack, and yours is in there. But for newer TOs, I really want to impress upon people how important a good tournament pack is. That explains things. You set up stuff like you had 7 scenarios, 8 scenarios. I don't remember how many total. You said I'm going to draw the 5 for the tournament from this, right?
Yep.
That was all published. You published all the schemes, which we'll talk about in a second, and said here's what they are. You need to be able to achieve some random number of 5 of these in your army, right? Yes, that was my dog Lyra. She's a good dog. You have a 2-list format, which I think is something that sets the Nashcon apart, and it's awesome. I love it because it completely changes the way that the meta functions, like it really does, and is so powerful and just a thing I wish people would kind of think about, at least as an option sometimes. And then obviously, yes, the schemes, but not just the fact that you use the schemes, these secondaries. It's the fact that those secondaries are highly impactful and highly impactful on the game and what they have your units doing. They're not just win more stuff, right? You have to go out of your way with a lot of them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And also highly impactful on the score, right? Yep. Because you scored them as they're one less point than a minor win this last year. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a big deal to complete your scheme, because that means that you're a major win you have set at 15, a minor win at 10, a scheme completion at 9. Yeah. So like it matters, right? And what it meant was we had really strong stratification throughout, right? Also, it seemed like this year going to like 6 schemes was really choice because a lot of people failed schemes, which was great.
Yep.
So I just kind of want to move through all that. So like, let's just start on the simplest one. And this is the thing I think a lot of TOs get right, but I really want to cover it because I think newer TOs don't always realize just how important it is. And that's the pack. So what do you think about, with your pack? Because you got a really solid pack you put together.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Yeah, I went through, because I relative to other gamers, I have a hobby as long as many people. And so when I first started running Nashcon, I went and kind of researched all the other packs for large tournaments, like Adepticon, South Coast GT, Facehammer. And those are the big tournaments at the time. And I went through and picked kind of just broke down their packs and kind of reformatted them in a way that I thought made a lot of sense. And then kind of was able to draw from some of my design background and lay out a document that I thought was easily legible. I think that's another thing with packs. Sometimes they can be hard to read just because they're maybe, just in how they're laid out. So trying to lay out a pack in a way that was kind of intuitive to me, at least. And then kind of, again, coming from my background as someone who's maybe not as, I haven't been on the scene as long as many people, explain some that aren't necessarily a lot of people take for granted. If you go to tons of tournaments, a lot of this stuff you don't need explained to you, but explaining kind of how certain things work in a little more depth. I try to do that so for new players coming in, they potentially have less questions.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it's funny, like Anthony made a joke in the comments of like, do people even read those? And and my answer is sometimes they don't, and they will suffer for it. But it's all there, right? And what it gives is
people
David,
who
good
want
basis.
to win read it.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or who wants to be responsible, yeah.
I routinely point people back to the pack.
Right.
Yeah, most things should be in there. It's not all in there, and it's not a perfect pack. But most questions that I have are in the pack.
Yeah. I've just been really impressed. And also I love that you give people an idea of the battle plans that are going to be used, right? Because then you can kind of know, all right, I'm going to need to be able to do this kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And on top of that, you picked 5 really solid scenarios. Like you used both Places of Arcane Power and my brain is freezing, and Duality of Death. Yeah, that's right. Which was great. The new changes to those made that viable.
Yep.
And it made those really, really interesting as to have both of those in the pack. Because the move to allow one of them to now be captured by battle line, right, suddenly really changes how that one feels. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was a kind of in reading through, and that's why they're in there. The changes. I wasn't a huge fan of Places of Arcane Power in the 2018 GHB, and when they made the changes to it, and then also changes to Duality. Some of my favorite, and then that also changes to Star Strike. I'm not as big of a fan of it now as I used to be. And then the other one that got left out was Total Commitment. And Total Commitment, I find personally punishes armies that don't need to be punished right now. And so I was really happy with the 5 that were in there.
Yeah, agreed. And by the way, let's just all agree. Let's just all leave Total Commitment out of packs. How about that? How about that, folks? Can we all just get together and say from now on, Total Commitment doesn't show up? It doesn't need to be there. It's not hurting anybody who's really strong. All it's doing is punishing people who are trying to have fun. It removes literally the entire allegiance ability of an army and most of the allegiance ability of a second army, neither of which are dominating forces.
Right.
So, like, it's just, I've pushed and pushed. Like, this one needs to be redesigned. Like, here's hoping for 2020.
Well, and really good scenarios that enlisted in my 7 that are long ways games. So they're played on the long end of the table, or played long ways on the table, whatever. And I think those can be really fun, but you have to have the right playing space to do that. Because if you're playing on tables like I have that are end to end to end, it's hard to get around to the short ends of the table to deploy. And because I was constrained on space this year, that's just not an option for me. But in the future, if I'm able to expand and maybe put space between tables, that I would love to consider those, because I think that also makes you strategize in a way that's very different than a typical deployment, I guess.
Yep. Right. Yep. And you used instead a lot of diagonal deployments, right? Which is fine. Those are fine. Those are fun. Yep. All right, rock and roll. Tom, any other thoughts on the pack before we move on?
No, I think that clarity is really important as to like what to expect, and I feel like the David's pack does that well. I want to talk about the dual list composition when we get to that as well.
Oh, well, that's what we're doing next. So dual list composition. But go ahead.
Let me add one more thing about the listing things in the pack. I think we're going to talk about schemes at some point.
Yep.
But listing the schemes in the pack I think it was a pretty big benefit for a lot of people, because I got a lot of questions prior to Nashcon about specific schemes and how they worked. It also is my main answer to people who, when they say, "Hey, I don't have a standard bearer in my army, I can't complete this scheme," and I look at them and say, "Well, you had 2 lists and you read the schemes beforehand. So if you didn't include a standard bearer, it's not my fault."
Right.
Yeah. So it's just, I think it helps. Yeah, I can prepare everybody.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about 2-list format. This is a thing I love, but let me unpack it here real quick. So, you show up, like every tournament, you got a 2,000 point list, right? Or like, no, I shouldn't say every tournament, like most tournaments, many tournaments, right? So it's a standard 2K list, plays by normal match play rules. However, the trick is you're allowed to have an alternative list, a second list, okay? That has to stay in the same faction. This year it was same faction.
allegiance.
Same allegiance, same faction. But other than that, can be composed of anything, right? Different. So for example, you might have a list where what you change is 2 magic items, and that's it. And that's your alternative list, right? Or you might have a list that's completely different. That's like a complete transformative sort of sideboard, right? Where suddenly, like if you run up against a shooting army, you can flip-flop. And the way you decide which list you're going to run is at the beginning when you roll up on your table, you and your opponent each present each other with both of your lists, copies of both lists. You read over both of their lists, and then you hand them back, and each of you chooses one of your 2 lists to play. You set them flat on the table and then flip them, and that's what you play that game. So there's a little bit of like blind man's bluff to it. You have to think about what they're going to do. It's fantastic. Love it. Love it. And I've seen people go everywhere from like very small changes to very big changes. Other thing of note, you have to use both lists over the course of the tournament. So that is to say, you can do 4 and 1, and that's fine, but both lists must be played in at least one game. Mm-hmm. So, there you go. All right, so Tom, you had some stuff you wanted to run on this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is this: like, I think that this allows you to run. Like, I think this is the 2 things. One, I think that this curves. Like, this autocorrects skews in the meta. By default, it corrects against skew lists. So, like, let's say that somebody, like, skews hard into shooting. Like, all the shooting everywhere. What this allows you to do when you build a list, if you know that like, hard skew is out there, you can build, and, like, you're really weak to shooting, you can have a transformative sideboard or a transformative secondary list that lets you compensate and prepare for those really, really bad matchups, right? And so what it does is it ends up it tapers down the end and moves everybody towards the kind of the middle of skewedness.
Will also be agreed completely, because when we talk about like army v army, we're usually talking about a static list versus static list, and sometimes one list that other army's top list might expose the weakness of army B, right? But if army B could have a second army, you know what I mean, that they can bring, then they can counter that, and it flattens things out. I completely agree.
And it also makes it so that you'd never have there are never any non-games.
Yeah.
Right? Because, like, if you have built your sideboard correctly, very rarely are you going to run into, and what I mean by that is, like, when I build a list, I always think about, like, what are the weaknesses of this list? And if I have, or what are the weaknesses? Either other armies or bad scenarios, right?
Yep.
And then what this allows me to do is to build another list that fills that gap. So if I bump up against that scenario, I have an option, right? That is kind of tailored towards to help limit some of those weaknesses, and so, like, for example, I was willing to take Fire Slayers to Nashcon. I don't know that I would ever take Fire Slayers in their current state to a normal fixed 5-game list, like a 5-game format. Like, they're not bad, but they have some very, like, glaring weaknesses. And I don't know that there's any list in there that's like a strong 5-game list, but I can come up with 2 really strong 4-and-1 lists.
Sure.
And so, like, it allows more diversity in list building itself. That's what I would say.
Yeah. I think it's a really good point. I hadn't thought about it that way, but now that I kind of go back and think through it, there are only maybe 1 or 2 games that ended under an hour. which
Right.
that sounds ridiculous for a game to end under an hour, but it happens in non-games, in some games where you just get in that terrible matchup and they just take you off the table in the first or second turn. That only happened in the first round. There was one game that ended ridiculously fast, and it was just a bad matchup that I'm not sure the player could have avoided. But but yeah, I think that actually.
Nope, he's still there. There you go. You're back.
Did I cut out? Sorry about
You
that.
cut out for just a second. It's okay. You made your point. We got you.
Yeah, gotcha.
No, I agree. And so somebody like Dan asked in the chat of like, what happens when these larger allegiances come out, like Free Cities, where you can just change the entire thing you're playing? Okay, then that's the list you bring. If you want to bring basically 4,000 points or something like that, 3,500 points worth of stuff, and you have two completely different lists, then you can do that. That's an advantage of that army. Skaven can do it. Nurgle can do it. I think Nurgle is actually a huge beneficiary of this,
Right.
because Nurgle is one of those armies that's like very pigeonholed into like it can do this one thing well, but it can't really do a lot of stuff very well at once. So like the fact that you can have two very distinct Nurgle lists that attack in different ways, I think is a huge strength for Nurgle, right?
Yeah, totally.
That was weird. Your little pictures dropped out for a second, then came right back. No, we're still good. All right. You're still here.
Yep.
Neat. Anyway, like the
Yeah.
go
ahead.
No, please.
Yeah, no, I think there's it's interesting how you can kind of see the difference in how GW has done like the allegiances over like the couple of years, right? Because Legion of Nagash is different now because each of the legions is a specific allegiance, right? Whereas new books they're all one allegiance, and you can kind of build much more different lists, I guess. So it's a little bit the change in the game design, I think, throughout as well, which can impact the two lists. But overall, yeah, I mean, I think you can have a lot of variety if you want.
Yeah, and let me say something else here because I want to answer something in the chat. This is a great example of this. You want to talk about correcting power curves. There was a person in the chat who asked about, was one of the armies Slanesh and how many depravity points did it have when it won, right? The answer is, I had the highest placing Slanesh list, and I took 5th. Okay, I got best chaos and in 5th place. The winner of the tournament was Daughters of Cain. Okay.
Yep.
And second place was Iron Jaws. And what was third, David? I'm sorry, I don't remember third.
I can find it real fast.
It was FEC. It was FEC.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah, it was Bill's FEC. I'm sorry, Bill. So, at any rate, like, and the only game I dropped was my game 5, and it was against a Stormcast list. And you can all shut up about Slanesh. Here's my answer. I mean, so this Stormcast list was from, I would argue the majority of the models were from 2016, basically.
Yeah.
He had 15 libs, 10 protectors, a Stardrake, like a Toot Toots character, the Knight Castellant. He had like 2 new heroes, right? Which was like the Invoker or whatever his name is on foot, and the Lord Arcanum on Griff Charger or whatever. And he plowed through me. He plowed through my Slanesh army like it was made of tissue paper. And it exposed a very real weakness, like that he saw, which was that Slanesh cannot beat ultra high armor. We only have 2 things in the army basically that have -2 rend, and even then that's it, right? And he's on like 1-up re-rolling saves.
Sure.
Yeah, like nope, can't kill that. He also had a 4-up against mortal wounds because he had the
Ignax.
He had the Ignax, yeah. And like Shootcast, I'm not worried about. I'll plow through Shootcast. I had a list prepared for Shootcast. Okay. Like I'm less worried about that. Because they're soft and squishy once you get into them. All those Shootcast dudes, they're just a bunch of dum-dums on 4-ups. Right? If you're gonna go shooting, you better put all the heat out. Like I'm scared of KO to death with my Slanesh. To death. I don't know how I beat a KO army. I think they table me by the time the second turn rolls around. And the but ultra high armor, I should note that just like the lack of ultra high armor in the meta and the lack of of a very intense shooting in the meta has allowed Slanesh to dominate.
Yeah.
My Stormcast player who beat me, I wasn't the only Slanesh player he crushed on his road to best order, right?
Yep.
So like it's just a good point. He could do that because he could have those alternate lists, right?
Yeah.
And he could be responsive. So he saw me and went, "Yep, this is the one. Time to get the Star Boy out and go nuts.
Yeah, I have a 1-up rerollable Star Drake I'm going to shove down your throat with a range of like a 20-inch move. With the trumpet, the Heraldor running around, 20-inch move plus charge.
Yeah.
He's got something for you.
It doesn't help that he's a really, really great player. I think,
yes.
But yeah, they too. I think he smashed two Slaanesh armies. So I mean, he paid his dues to get to where he was, for sure. But when I was thinking about what I would do for my two armies if I was to do the same thing, I really like the idea of doing a really heavy shooting Stormcast list with my Star Drake as the other list, because I think they tackle most problems between those two lists.
It's a great compliment, right? And it beefs up one of the challenges of Stormcast, in that either one of those lists will often trip across like their kryptonite, but when you can alternate between it, like the variability of Stormcast becomes quite powerful, right?
Yep. Yeah. The breadth of the range really comes into play.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously for those with more limited ranges, it didn't hurt them, because again, the Ironjawz player actually made some real interesting choices in his two lists and got second place. So it's not like you're going, oh well, Ironjawz only have like 7 units. Aren't they going to have no ability to use this? No, they do, clearly, because he literally smashed and bashed his way through a lot of people to get there, and did a great job. Another awesome matchup for Slaanesh, I might add. Ironjawz is like the most fun thing you can play with Slaanesh. Anyway, so yeah, anything else we want to say about the 2-list format? I wish more people would adopt this kind of thing. I think it's super fun.
I think it's the most competitive format. I'm gonna put that out there. Like when you actually are talking about like what is the kind of because what it does is it moves it back. It moves the, how do I want to say this? It moves the list building contribution out of Theorycraft and into generalship.
Right. Yep.
And what I mean by that is this: like any Joe Schmo that has the internet and watches, all the tactics shows and reads all the threads can find ballbuster hard lists.
Sure.
Right.
Can go run
that are great all comers lists.
Yep.
And learn how to run those things and run those things. That's great. And it, in the right meta with an all comers list, you're just going to steamroll, right? But now suddenly when you have to bring 2 lists, it gives those, it moves that decision making into what's the best list for this scenario, for my secondary objectives, and for my opponent.
Right.
Like that suddenly that moves that back from list building, which you don't have to be a good general to do, back into actual generalship and in making right decisions.
I would also add, in addition to, I like that I like the idea that it's a competitive format, but I think also for the other side, there are a lot of people come to tournaments not to be especially competitive, but I think it adds people who want to come just to play fun games, more of like the relaxed games. It gives you more you can be more creative with your list and bring more of your collection, I think, which a lot of people want to play with more of their toys, right? And so you can have one list that's one way, and then another list with your other, your other models that you want to play with. And I found that a lot on the bottom tables, right, where you have more of like your more casual gamers, right? But their lists were very different, which I thought was pretty fun.
Yeah.
I think the only negative, just from a TO perspective, is it does add a lot of overhead. To had all the players submitted lists beforehand, and you're doubling the amount of lists you have to review. So the larger your tournament gets, the more you have to work as a TO prior to make sure all the lists check out. So that's really the only negative I can think of.
Yeah, and so to answer Dan's other question, he says, doesn't this just promote an all-comers list and an anti-meta list? Not necessarily. I think that is one way people could attack it, but it can also be my general list and my list that covers a weakness if I run against a potential person that's going to expose that. Or I've seen people use two different lists, like for the scenarios that require a lot more objectives and a lot more movement. Okay, this is my more MSU build where I have a lot more units. In fact, I think this was one of the Iron Jaws builds was like this, right? Where he had for the like singular things where he needed to group. So like duality, he had like massive units of Ard boys, right? And for the ones where he would need to spread out more, he had smaller MSU type units to float around, right? And like that's the kind of thing that's like really good. That's good thinking, Lincoln. You know, like that's understanding how you can utilize that format to overcome what might be otherwise weaknesses of that whatever list A is. So, yeah.
Yeah.
For my KO, like I had a heavy shooting KO list, like or not. I'm sorry. I wasn't a KO for Fire Slayers. I had a heavy shooting Fire Slayer list,
Right?
like a quite heavy shooting Fire Slayer list, and then I had a like 40 Hearthguard, like just like push it forward and smash everything it touches list, which is like two very different play styles, very different tactics, and that would fill different niches in different scenarios.
Yep. I will say, hold on, let me respond to one of the comments real quick, which was like, it does make it more challenging for your players to travel if they're going to bring a bunch of extra points, right? So, sure. Like, that's true. They don't have to. They could always just make small changes. You could have a couple small unit changes. You don't need to have a whole other army. But I am accepting the fact that if you make that choice, yeah, it's tough. You know, because
yeah, for sure.
A bunch more stuff. That's totally
That's a good point. Yep.
Yep. Fortunately,
but that's on the player. The player can choose to how complex, how different they want their list. Just like when you decide to play a summoning army or not.
Sure.
Yep.
Which is my greatest regret. That's the thing I hate about Slanesh tournaments is you have to bring all this crap for summoning. Ugh, awful.
Well, and it shows how strong Daughters of Cain are, right? And Jake's a great player too,
Yes.
but Daughters of Cain really just don't care about matchups as much, right? They're just if you run like the standard list, right, and that list can take just about anybody, and then it's down to generalship and scenario, and that, I think that proved true as well.
So, and one other thing I want to answer here, W. Soren says, attorney might not be the best place to take a casualist, like he was talking about specialized versus casualist. Let me tell you what, man, I hear that a lot. I think that's people's perception of tournaments, that it's like 60 to 100 whack players all getting together and like gnashing teeth. No.
That's not what Nashcon is.
That's not what most tournaments are. Most tournaments are 5 to 10 people vying for the top who are playing some hard but very friendly games of Warhammer on the top tables, right? And then everybody else who's just, most people have like some casual lists, some fun lists, what they have, and they're having a good time. They're playing in the mid tables. They're playing and they're loving it. They're having 5 great games of Warhammer with great people. And by the way, that sorts even faster into that in Nashcon because of the use of schemes, right?
Yeah.
So, speaking of which, let's talk schemes. All right, so you used a list of schemes that yourself, myself, Tyler Emerson, and Tom work together to refine and build. And I'm very proud of them. I think they're very engaging. I think they're challenging. And they are secondaries. As I mentioned before, they're worth a lot of points. So you have potentially 24 sort of battle-ish points you can get in each game. 15 from a major victory and 9 from the scheme. And I think what I love about our schemes, where I think they differ from like the secondaries that GW introduced, is that ours make you change the way you're playing in a big way usually, right? Like you have to have units go do very different things, right? I think of things like Relic Hunters, where you've got to have a unit run around the board and touch 3 different pieces of terrain trying to find a sacred relic. Or the thing where you've got to suicide one of your characters, right? Because he's a traitor and you know it. Or Map Maker, where you have to touch all 4 corners of the board with a unit, which is really easy for some armies and really crazy for others. And so I just love the variability of them. They make you think and act in very different ways. And the fact and the thing that you did really well with them is, one, you gave everybody 6. So you randomly draw 6 and you have to play a different, you have to use one every game without replacement, right? So in other words, once you use it, it's burned, and now you got to use one of the remaining ones. And so you've got one you can just throw away and not do. And in addition to that, because they're random draws, you never know what you're going to end up with. It's not like a set pack where you just get to pick 6. Yep. Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, Greg from Sigmar and Sons in there. He went 3-2 and got 3 of his schemes. His son went 2 and 3, but got all his schemes and ended up with a higher score.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's
Schemes,
pretty cool.
A really big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It matters. Like, it matters to your overall success in the tournament. If you want to win, you got to be playing toward it. And it's 2 tight concepts. You're winning the scenario, you're keeping your scheme in mind. I love it.
Yep.
What else can we say about schemes? I know I went on a rant there.
No, I think there's a fun like poker thing you do, right? Where you kind of it's the joy of like the bluff that you get from playing poker, of like taking your hand of cards and putting down the card, right? I think there's an element of that. I think it's really fun. There's also I love the stories that come out. I think that wouldn't happen otherwise. But the really great stories of like, you know, you mentioned it, it's like the scheme where you sacrifice a character, and then it always happens. Every year it's happened, but the opposing player chooses the scheme where they're opposing, they choose a hero in their opposing army and they have to survive. Right. And it always happens where the person chooses the character that the other person has chosen to die. And so one guy's like throwing his hero around the board trying to get him to die, and the other guy's like running away from him. And right. it becomes really entertaining.
Yep. Tomb King's Curse is another popular one for wacky interactions, where units are killing each other and then bouncing this curse around throughout the game, and you're playing against the clock to try to get your unit killed to get it back to the other side. You know.
And there's also a really interesting interaction once you get, like, because there's so many of these, because we're running 19 now, is that right?
I think it's like 25.
Is it 25? Okay. I know that like that number's fluctuated a little bit. So there's 25 of them. You're getting 6 randomly. And so so when I would roll up at Adepticon or whatever, and you have like your 10 schemes or 12 schemes or whatever, and you're doing 2 per, like, I know, and I've internalized what those 12 are, and so I can read the table and see what's going on and what they're playing towards. But when you have 6,
yeah.
Say what?
The secondaries, is that what you're talking about?
Like this, but yes, but like the GW secondaries, right?
Yes. I just wanted
only 12, and then everybody's working out of this tight pool, right? That's very different than like 6, where everybody's 6 are completely different, and there's 25 possibilities. Because most people can't internalize that much information. And so when they read the table, like, it's not obvious what secondaries people are doing. Because like when I can remember, like, when I would look at my 6, like, I know what my 6 are, but if I'm playing somebody that's not trying to accomplish one of those 6, it's actually fairly hard to understand like what they're attempting to do unless you've completely internalized all 25.
Right.
And so it makes it for much more interesting games in the secondary play, because you see very weird behavior and you're not quite sure what the other opponent's doing. Like in a normal tournament, like Adepticon, where I know the 12 secondary possibilities, I'll run through the possibilities and be able to figure out what's going on the table. That's not as easy to do when there's 25.
Yeah, agreed. Unless it's map maker and your opponent's randomly running models into the corners of the table.
Edges, yeah. It's always the funniest one. Yeah. You got to be sneaky on that one.
That's why you just play Night Haunt and teleport your Dreadblade Harrow just to each corner each turn.
Your Pipers and your Sylvaneth are great. They're obviously a great asset in that one, when they're just like revving their way around the board or to each corner.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I really love them. There was a question of like, where are these from? And yeah, like, I created them. And yes, they're kind of like, is it just for this tournament? Myself, like I said, Tom, Tyler Emerson, and David all created them. And certainly there's some inspiration from several games there. Malifaux being among it. It's nothing, it's a direct use of that stuff, but I like the concept of like strong secondary things that pull you in opposite directions. I think that's a strong element of Malifaux. And so we just use some very similar concepts, right? That's going to pull you apart. It definitely has the same thematic underpinning to it as what Malifaux does.
Yeah, and I just actually like one of my we had a new player here this year named Austin, and this is his first tournament ever playing in Warhammer. And one of the things he told me that he liked a lot about schemes was it because they're weighted so heavily, it gave him something to play for when he kind of realized he couldn't win the scenario, which I thought was really but it's a really good incentive, right? Keeps you in games and keeps you from getting kind of like the bad feeling you get when it's like round 3, you realize that there's no way in the world you're going to win the scenario, and you kind of slog through the end. If you have a scheme to play for that's still very valuable in the overall sense of the tournament, then you have something to kind of continue keep you engaged.
Agreed. It's so powerful, right? Because it gives you something to play for. There's nothing worse than writing that goose egg on your score sheet, right? That's always a bad time. And the fact that these schemes aren't mutually exclusive is what makes it fun, right? You can lose the game, you can take the major loss, but you still get your scheme in, and you're like, yeah, all right, I was still in that. I got some points on the board, and it feels really good. And certainly the other guy could still get a major win and get his scheme. So he might have had a lot more points, but you don't feel skunked. And that's a huge difference. So I dig that tall. Absolutely. Okay.
I think there are a couple events worldwide that use these.
I think the coach used them.
Coach used them down in Australia, and
Anthony's going to use them in an event that he's running upcoming.
So. Yeah, and then there was another Southern.
Didn't Jacob use them?
Oh yeah, Chaos. Yeah.
Yep. There you go.
Yep.
So yeah, there's and I think we have the file out there. I don't you have a list of all of them, if nothing else, in the Nashcon tournament pack, so anybody could see these. So they're all usable by anybody.
And shout out to Tyler Emerson for printing out the cards. I think there's something really nice about having a physical card in your hand.
Yep.
And he was gracious enough to get those printed, and they were invaluable at the tournament.
Yep. Absolutely. Being able to keep a grip. You got your hand, and you're like, it's just like, okay, got it. Bam, you set it down. Yes.
Yeah, I once seen everybody had their deck in their back pocket. It cracked me up at the end of every round. Everybody pull out their cards from their back pocket to give them to me. I don't know why that was funny to me, but
sure. Absolutely. So, and yes, another thing about these is they're often not just killing a thing. I mean, there are some of those in there, right? That are just kill this thing, kill an enemy character of a certain type or something like that. There's a couple of those in there. But a lot of them are much more varied in what they're asking you to do. Go places, do things, act in unusual ways. Stuff like King of the Monsters, where you need to be the last monster alive. Or the one where you have to keep your lowest point hero alive, but get all the rest of your heroes killed.
Yeah.
Right? So there's just a lot of fun things to do there. I think it keeps people in. People don't feel like they're so far behind. And most importantly, a thing that I kind of mentioned offhand earlier, but I really want to nail on here, it stratifies people very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Meaning you get much more accurate matchups faster, right? And you're not relying on some secondary, tertiary split as the tournament goes on. Instead, exactly who's on table 3, because boom, 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 boom. These points tend to be very segmented, right? I think going into the final round, there was Jake was way ahead of us, or somewhat ahead of us, and then there were 3 of us that were on the same points, or something like that. It was something close like that.
Yeah.
That was unusual.
It was very unusual, and actually at the very end, TOs, generally hate ties because they need to start going into tie breaks and everything. I had to go into no tiebreakers at the end of the tournament, which was awesome.
Yep. Every point was just boom. Was literally there was no ties down the points. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it was awesome. It was really, really great.
And that's a strong thing. That's a very rare thing. How often do you see a 5-game tournament where nobody has the exact same score going down the top 10, right?
Yep.
All right. Cool. What else? Is there anything else we want to talk about with Nashcon? Anything else you want to spruik? That was all the main ones I wanted to hit.
Trying to think if there's anything else of note. I gave him a shout out at the tournament, but we tried really hard to put together nice looking tables. And Anthony Picastro really ponied up big time this year and was sending me just truckloads of boxes of 3D printed terrain over the whole year, pretty much. And I still have like 3 tables of unpainted terrain that just didn't get done prior to Nashcon this year. So we have some beautiful stuff coming up for next year. But I really couldn't have done it without him. It would have been a lot more like foam and plastic tree terrain had he not. So, I think that was something that I think is unique and a lot of fun for me. I enjoy putting up tables that look really nice, but also impact the game. I think one thing that I tried to do a lot of was put line of sight blocking terrain and choke points on some tables to make for interesting games. So, again, kind of going into like the generalship portion of the game. I think that's something that I liked this year.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a good point. So, like, if I had to summarize what makes a great tournament, it's some kind of interesting, unique experience, right? And what that could mean is just for your area, 5 good games, right? Because your area doesn't have a lot of tournaments at all. Fine, that's the bar. Here in the area where we're at here, Midwest to Upper South, like there's a lot of tournaments around, and David presents. There's a novel experience to it, unique experience, very challenging and fun. Good pack up front, so people have all the information they need. Good tables, as good as you can muster. Things like terrain and layout matters. And I want to shout out because Anthony's in the chat, and he mentioned all the terrain was marked ahead of time with the words. So yeah, like this was a great idea. So what happened was the tables were all set up. David went around and set up all the tables. And he went around, basically, I believe Anthony brought those little things too, didn't he?
Yeah, Anthony did all of that. He did all the labeling the terrain.
He's a rock star. star. And so he had printed out little tiny, plastic things that said, arcane or overgrown or whatever, right? And we just had a couple people randomly walk around with a big bag and just reach in and be like, and that one, and that one, and that one. And that was what the terrain was on that table for the whole tournament.
Yep.
Right? So there was no need to roll it out at the beginning of the game. No need. It didn't, you know what I mean? It was neutrally set because that was just a TO who was setting it up on a completely random draw. It made for some really interesting tables, and it was so much better. Oh my God, this needs to be a thing that everybody does from now on. Like, I cannot explain how much better it made it. Because you could set up and just be like, oh, okay, cool. This is what this table looks like. Got it.
Yeah, and it was fun, because it was completely random, like you said. I mean, you used all 12. It's kind of one of the only ways you can use all 12 terrain features, unless you want to go to like a D12 system. Because usually to choose like one table of like the D6.
Right.
And we used all 12, and it was fun seeing like one gigantic piece in the middle be like volcanic or like nullification or something that really impacted the game. Yeah, definitely. That was huge. And we had the idea early on that we wanted to do that, pre-label all the terrain, and we were just gonna like print them and then cut them out of paper and leave paper slips. But Pro Painted Podcast actually does those laser cut little tokens, and Anthony just bought them in bulk, and we did that, and it ended up being really good.
Nice. That's where they come from. Okay, got it. Yep. Yeah, it was so good. It was awesome. Like, it just made everything so much faster. I also loved it because I managed to get the side that had the only commanding terrain on the board one game, and my general sat out, and I think I got up to 13 command points that game, which I appreciate. You never know when you're going to need to simultaneously run with everybody in your army and reroll every charge and then pile in twice and attack. You got to be ready for these things.
Sure.
All eventualities.
I have one more thing I want to shout out as well, and it's been too long. I'm surprised that it took me this long to shout it out. But we had the Honest Wargamer came. They were in town and helped us with streaming. So they streamed the top table for all 5 games. Rob and Scrivo. As well as Jacob Berry from the Rage of Sigmar podcast. and just put on a really good coverage of the top table throughout the event, and loved having them there. It was, just that was another great part of the tournament, I think.
Absolutely. You guys can't. I mean, you can see it if you're watching on a separate screen. But Scrivo did. Yeah, special shout out to Rob and Scrivo, who were both awesome, and thank you. And everybody who helped them. They were amazing, as always. Like, just great dudes. And Scrivo did a custom piece of art for all the best in in Alliance. And this was the best chaos. So I'm super happy to have this. I need to get it framed. Isn't that great? It's like this Keeper of Secrets thing. It's so gorgeous. He did an awesome job.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Scrivo's awesome.
Yep.
So thank you. Get back up on where you were. There you go.
And the thing I'm most proud of is that the final game, it wasn't the top table, but we had Ironjaws versus Ironjaws in game 5. And it was incredible. Just the most fun game.
Yeah. Well, watching the two of them comment, I tell you what, they could go on the road. They've got an act right there. Okay. This is Hope and what was it? Hope and Crosby. Is that who it was? I'm trying to remember what the team was, but where they did all the road movies. But yeah, there you go. They could do a tour. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, and they're so professional about everything. From a TO perspective, like they didn't. They were very great. Like, they worked really well with me on how to set everything up and not be like demanding or kind of encroaching on my space or anything. It was really, I was pretty detached from the whole thing and just kind of helped them as like, I was very minimally involved, which was great because I had enough stuff on my plate. So I loved every aspect of it.
Sure. One quick final note. Are you watching on another screen right now, David?
I'm not.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. If you could, hold on, I need to figure out how I move my chair. I don't know. Nope. Yep. Okay, this way. You would see that behind me, back here, I'm really bad at this like mirror image thing. I got little stands for all the swords and stuff. So now I actually have them properly displayed. I have the one from the Ironjaws and then the one, and they're over their cases of their respective armies. They're like behind me.
I'm looking. I just logged into a different
I'm really
video. I think it's just coming up to the point in the video where you're about to show me what you just said. No, I'll watch it later. That sounds great though. That's awesome.
So there you go. I finally have a way to display your all the swords, since you give out weapons as your trophies.
Yeah, I had to mail another one this year, which was great. I had to mail Jake's axe to him.
Because he couldn't bring it on the airplane, sure.
Right, yeah, absolutely not. The thing was actually pretty sharp.
Yeah. Excuse me, this has been my check-in luggage. It's my axe. Nothing wrong with that, right? That's perfectly fine. I don't see axes in the, no, like with a line with a cross through it up on the, please don't bring these things on board. So it's fine. I'm Viking, so it's okay.
Yeah, I always geek out every year when all the weapons get delivered. It's one of my favorite times.
Yeah,
I get to take them all out. My wife gets to shake her head in shame.
Nice. Tom, any final thoughts for you, sir?
Really sad I didn't get to go.
Yeah, it was a really good time this year.
It's just disappointing. So, but there's next year.
Yes.
David, let's talk about next year. So you were like, it was butted up against Adepticon, or not Adepticon, Nova this year.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what does it look like for next year?
Yes, I can definitely think. I actually had some information given to me today. So next year we're moving to the beginning of June. Let me see if I can pull it up on my phone real quick. The exact dates. So it's looking likely we will be in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, which is another suburb. So this year, every other year, we've been in Franklin, Tennessee, which is about 30 minutes south of Nashville. This is in Murfreesboro, which is southeast, about the same distance, about 30 minutes, on June 5th, 6th, and 7th. At a new venue, we'll have more space. I think the biggest critique of this year, both from myself and from the players, was the space. We were limited on space. It limited the number of tables I had available. And it also, our room got kind of hot during the day. And it just got a lot of people in a small
I didn't
space.
notice. It felt great.
Okay. Well, Yeah, it may have been where you were within the venue, but if you were like mid tables around like game 2 or 3.
Sorry, Vince. Top tables were air conditioned.
Well, no, I'm just saying like I moved through some of those spaces later in the day and it seemed a little bit muggier. But regardless,
I didn't
next
mean that.
year
I just meant I like it hot. And so I didn't notice. It was great. Normally in those venues, I'm so cold. I'm just running around shaking all the time. But this was wonderful.
I was just trying to subtly call you a filthy Slanesh player, so that was my that was my little jab there. No, I think so. What? So next year we'll be in MC Suites in Murfreesboro, which is a larger venue. I'll be getting all the details on exact space, but I should have a lot more capacity and room to move. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, honestly, more of the same, more what we talked about. I don't plan on changing up the secret sauce much from year to next year. We'll see what happens in the meta, but otherwise, I'm really excited. I'm excited to, I had a lot of extra terrain this year, so I'm already kind of set up to expand for next year. So
we're getting
excited.
to 100 next year. It's happening. Here we go. We're cracking 100.
That if I'm given enough space, then I would love to hit 100. And I think we could easily do it. I think I was hampered a little bit by capacity constraints at the beginning this year.
Sure.
So I had some spots open up late, but it didn't really give people enough time to sign up. So yeah, very
Let's
excited.
ask the most important question about this new venue. How close is there a Chewy's to that new venue?
Oh, I could Google it. I don't know. I'll find out.
It's going to be relevant information. It's good to start planning now. That's going to be important to understand, because I don't know. That's really a hit if it's not around. But anyway,
I just Googled it. And I think there is a Chewy's within the vicinity.
Excellent. All right, we're safe. All right, I support the venue change. Then we're good. All right. At any rate, David, thank you very much, buddy, for coming on. I really appreciate you going through and talking to us about all this. It's a great tournament. I really do want to encourage everybody to go out to Nashcon next year. When he puts it up, sign up, make the trip if in any way you can. It is worth it. You will have a great time. It's great people. So there you go. Tom, any final thoughts?
Folks, it's a really good event. Yeah. One thing that we haven't really talked about is that it's like super friendly for new players.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity, 2 of my local guys went up and they seem to have had a really good experience. And this was their first like large event experience. And so it's very like new player friendly as far as events go.
Yep.
And so I can't recommend it highly enough.
Yeah, agreed. Oh yes, that's funny. My wife just mentioned, because I came back in super late that night. I drove back from Nashville. It was like very late, and I just came in and threw everything on the kitchen counter. And my wife had to send me a text the next day, because I got up and came down and started working, and she sent me a text that said, "Could you please remove your swords from the kitchen before I get home?" Which is not something she expected to have to ever text me about. But at any rate. David, thanks again, brother. Very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. For all of you out there watching, thank you very much. Don't worry, we'll be back to normal next week when hopefully I'm not dying, and so we will keep talking. As always, we appreciate you watching. I thank you very much, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Bye bye.